What's your whole take on this Hyman situation? Are you sad to see him go? Or do you think this is actually good for the Leafs moving forward, that they're not going to tie themselves down and give this guy an 8-year deal for $5 million plus?
Yeah. Often for sports fans, and I will say more specifically for Toronto Maple Leafs fans, there's like a logical side and an emotional side. The emotional side's upset. Like, this guy gave it his all for the blue and white. He came in as a rookie, as part of that team that surprised everyone and made the playoffs. Like you said, he's very likable. He's big in the community. He writes children's books. He's recently married. We saw that stuff on social media. And he's a great character guy. And if we're being perfectly honest, we've been spoiled in the last 5 years with A-plus talent when it comes to the players we've had. We are very lucky. But where we've lacked is that old school kind of grit, heart and character, balls to the wall player. And that's what Zach Hyman is. So again, from the emotional standpoint, it sucks. It really does suck to lose a player like that. But from the logical standpoint, no, we have to move on from this guy. Like, this is the definition of the player that you walk away from and you let somebody else do something stupid. And I know Leafs fans are going to get upset and say, we're going to get worse losing this guy. You're freeing up some cap space. And just because you can sign a guy, meaning you have the cap space, doesn't mean you should. Like, even if the Leafs had the space to sign Zach Hyman to a reasonable deal, I wouldn't want to do it. I shouldn't even say that, because, if the Leafs really wanted to sign Hyman to say 5 or whatever, they could pull it off. But it's about the term he's going to get, so it's a non-issue. Like, I'm not signing a guy who's 29 years old, who's had the injuries he's had, who plays the way he plays. Because let's face it, there is the issue in the NHL of miles and the miles you put on your legs. And Zach Hyman has a lot of miles on those legs, a lot. Like, I don't want to know. And, like, I'm rooting for him. Wherever he goes, I'll 100% be rooting for him. I'll be hoping he's putting up some great numbers and having some great seasons and has success. But if I had to bet, if he ends up with a 7 or 8 year deal somewhere, which it looks like he will, by year 4, maybe, my bet would be that team wants the hell out of that deal. So just from that standpoint of like building a healthy culture, a healthy organization, no, you can't do that. You can't sign him.
No, you nailed it. I think this contract is a stone lock to age poorly.
Yeah.
Like, Zach Hyman as a player, just the way he plays, you said it, Lepore, this is not someone who, once they get into their 30s, is going to continue to get better. This is a player, and we've seen examples of players like this over the years. And, you think about that hardworking grinder who lacks foot speed and skill.
That's it. Yeah.
You just know that player is not going to age as good as someone, who skates well and who has a lot of skill. And listen, Zach Hyman, you look at the numbers over the last 3 seasons, he's third on the Leafs in goals per game over the last 3 seasons behind Austin Matthews and John Tavares. So
was it last year? Do you not have like a 30 goal pace last year? Something
so
nuts?
He had Lepore. So going back to the COVID shortened season, he had 21 goals in 51 games. And then going back to last year's 56 game season, which was obviously cut down because of COVID and other things like that, 15 goals in 43 games.
Wow, good numbers.
So
man.
This guy over the last 3 years is averaging 0.35 goals per game. That puts him, Matthews leads the NHL in goals per game. Then you have John Tavares, who I believe is at 0.46 goals per game. And, I think he's in the 0.4s, and then Hyman's right behind him. So Hyman's actually ahead of Nylander and Marner in terms of goals per game over the last 3 seasons combined.
There you go.
It's like, yeah, the stats have been there. He's been a good player. And listen, I do think there is some element of his numbers being propped up, getting an opportunity to play with all of the Leafs' big 4 guys,
That's
right?
true.
It's not just Matthews and Marner that he's played with. He's played with Tavares and Nylander as well, on some of the different line combinations that have been put together. And listen, I think he's going to tear it up with Connor McDavid.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's how Edmonton's seeing it too.
Like, he's going to be on that first line with McDavid, or whether he gets a chance to play with Draisaitl, this guy's going to put up points.
Yeah.
But How long is he going to do that for? How long is that going to last? And when you're committing, 7 to 8 years to a player like this, who has not played a full season since 2017, 2018, Zach Hyman now has had multiple knee injuries. He's had I believe he have like I want to say it was a hand injury of some
thumb
sort.
Or something. Yeah, there was something.
He had another, he's had multiple injuries now over the last 3 seasons, and that knee specifically, which has caused him issues. So that's just someone who's not going to age gracefully, and that's a contract that you just know is going to bite the team in the ass, whoever ends up signing that. So, yeah I mean, I think as much as it sucks to see Zach Hyman go, as much as Leaf fans have loved this guy over the last number of seasons, and like you said, Lepore, like he came up with all the rookies with Matthews, Marner, and Nylander, and, he started sort of this new era, the new era of losing in the first round.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really not a new era that's been going on now for the last 17 years, but you guys get what I mean. The Matthews era, let's call it, right? Like he's one of the key figures from the Matthews era. And, like we said earlier in the show, this is a team that is lacking talent in the top 6, and they're going to have to find a way to replace him. And I don't know how they're going to do that right now, Lepore, because as we know, they don't have a lot of cap space. They didn't have any draft capital this year to trade. They went into the draft on Friday with 3 picks. They gave away all the picks in that Nick Foligno deal, and obviously there was other deals where they gave away picks. But they're a team now, Lepore, that has to find a way to replace the production of Zach Hyman in the top 6 and get production from other players besides the core 4.
Yeah, there's something's going to happen. And like I've said this to a lot of people like in my circle, and they kind of look at me like I really think there's going to be a deal. The Leafs are going to make a move because there's a lot of pressure on this season. There's a lot of pressure. And there's even, if I was in the Leafs organization, like I'd be so fearful of even like a slow start. Like after like how they finished last year, a slow start could kill the morale of this team. They have to make a move to spark something. From a mental standpoint, there's also the idea that like this team has to significantly try to get better. So, and like you said, like I kind of like an underrated topic with the Toronto Maple Leafs is their scoring depth. Like, of course, like they have their big 4 and like those guys play a lot of minutes, and they've been lucky enough to get points from like guys like Hyman and like Kerfoot chips in, and like Spezza has been great. Like let's face it, like guys, the Mikheyevs of the world, like those guys, like they're not pulling their weight from a production standpoint. And I'm sure the Leafs organization knows that. So I'd be shocked if there wasn't a move for like some sort of player that's really going to make this player or players who are really going to make this forward group look and feel different. But it's weird, man. Like it's almost back to Hyman. Like it's almost like these GMs have to be like saved from themselves. You know what I mean? And like, I wonder how much of it too is like not even like management. It's like ownership chiming in. These guys don't know what the hell they're talking about. Like you just look at some of these deals, and to me, it's never really about the money, because like if you have the cap space and you can fit it in and it makes your team better, do it. Like that doesn't, having a guy who makes a little bit too much money doesn't hurt you. What hurts you is later in the deal when that guy's putting up production that in no way matches his salary. Like the way I see it is now you're playing with a lesser cap than everybody else. And these deals just get thrown around, and it's like the term. And like, why are GMs like, it's like they're like itching like to make these deals of like 5, 6, 7 years for like these kind of like B-level players, like good players, nice players, but giving them these huge deals. And it's almost like they're taking bets based on hope. And like, that's how I guess I would kind of like, that's what I would like to ask Ken Holland. It's like, Ken, like everything we just laid out, 29 years old, injuries, the style of play, 8 years, like you have a lot of hope inside you right now that this works out. Like, come on, Ken. Like, and people would come back at me and say, well, there's probably a good chance Ken Holland's not going to be the general manager of the Edmonton Oilers in 6, 7, 8 years. And that's not a shot at Ken Holland. That's just the reality of the NHL and like the lifespan these guys have. Some people point to that as to why these GMs make these long deals just to get the player. But I don't know, man. But I'll ask you, like, did your eyebrows raise at the Gallagher contract for the term he got?
You're talking about like Gallagher's contract with Montreal?
Yeah, because like same deal, right? Like he got that term, and a lot of people were like, "Whoa!" Like because again, like everyone loves Gallagher, they love what he brings, like what Hyman brings. And I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I'm just saying, like for that style of player, man.
Yeah,
Like
no,
even,
those are players, and it's like I mentioned, right? Like those are players, Lepore, that you just know are not going to age well. Yeah, like Gallagher, he's coming in at 6.5. So what
was it
was
7
his deal?
years?
Was 6 years, 39 million.
6 years.
Yeah,
Okay, and
six
he's how
years,
old?
39 million. That's man, that's
How
big.
how old's Gally?
And Gallagher, I believe he's the same. Yeah, he's born in 92. So he's the exact same age as Hyman.
Yeah, okay, so 35.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know that's a contract that doesn't look very good. And even like, talking about signing free agents to these long-term deals, I look at even like what New York just did, signing Barclay Goodrow to a
oh my
6-year
god,
deal for
yeah.
3.6 million a year.
That's
It's
a
like
weird one. If for like that amount for that term, like usually it's more money, right?
it's
I just
crazy. And
never.
it's like, what is going through the heads of some of these GMs just to toss out term like this? And like, you could argue like Barclay Goodrow, like 3.6 million, it's a little bit of an overpay, but if it was only, let's say like 2 or 3 years, you could stomach it a little bit easier. But to pay a guy like that for
Yeah,
6 years, like you're just asking for cap problems. And even the way that I look at the Edmonton situation with Ken Holland, it's like, okay, I get it. You have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Like, you need to try to win hockey games right now, or else Connor McDavid. Let's not kid ourselves. He's pissed off,
hmm
and I know that the way Connor McDavid conducts himself in the media and just everything we know about Connor McDavid, I highly doubt he's ever going to publicly come out and say he requests a trade or he wants to be traded from the Edmonton Oilers. But you
yeah.
got to
No, the
think
Leafs
that,
will just get him in free agency.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
The Gluttons for
Leafs are getting
Punch
Connor
Podcast,
McDavid in free
everybody.
agency. You heard it here first on the
Heard it here
GFP
first.
podcast.
5 years
But,
ago, Lepore said it.
but it's like, you got to be thinking this guy, he's fed up at this point, and he's never going to come out and say that publicly. But is Zach Hyman the best you can do, Lepore? Like, if you're going to
Fair.
commit 8 years, and I know you're not giving this guy like $7-8 million a year, but that's still a sizable chunk when it comes to the salary cap, especially like we've brought up how this is a flat cap world now, how for the next number of seasons, Lepore, the salary cap is not moving. So a lot
Yeah.
of teams are being put in shitty situations. The Leafs are obviously one of them. Even Colorado, you look at how they can barely sign Gabriel Landeskog because they had to lock up Cale Makar to a $9 million contract, and he's one of the top 3 defensemen in the NHL right now. They're going to have to pay Nathan McKinnon something close to McDavid money when his contract expires shortly, and they can't even afford Gabriel Landeskog. So a
Yeah.
lot of teams are in shitty situations, and knowing that, you don't have a lot of slots here. Like, if you're going to commit money to someone on term like that, like, you better be convinced this is a player that is going to be a fantastic member of our organization for the length of this contract. And it makes sense to take a gamble on a player like that. And I don't know, man, locking up Zach Hyman for 7 to 8 years at over $5 million. Like, is that the best you could do to surround Connor McDavid with talent?
Yeah. I even pointed, you made the point about Colorado and Landeskog. Like, I'd applaud Colorado for that. Because, like, no, we're not going to overpay. We're not going to give you more than what we think you deserve. And, like, the way I've always seen it, and I'd love to hear other people's perspective on this, is like, I've kind of always thought I'd run my NHL team kind of like how a lot of NFL teams are controlled. And when I say that, I mean, you have your star players, and those are the guys that you fully commit to. And then everyone else, it's like, as you go down the list of quality of player, they're more replaceable. Like, you can find them other places, and maybe you get some value somewhere and you give that guy a longer deal. But like, kind of the point I said before, but kind of like these B level players getting these like massive contracts, like it never ends well. Like, it's hilarious. If you look at the list every year, like, you're having a bad day and you want to get some laughs, go over the July 1st signing sheet of like all the contracts are given out 2, 3, and like you're laughing at
Oh,
all.
it's
Like,
egregious.
none of them are good. None of them. It's like, and again, like these GMs, like they can't get out of their own way. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's just like going back to the whole Hyman thing. It's like, yes, I get it. He's a good player. He's probably going to have a couple of really good seasons with Connor McDavid, but is that the player you want to hitch your wagon to for 7 to 8 years in a flat cap world?
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me you can't go out there and even make a deal for someone. Like if I'm Connor McDavid, like again, I don't want to always bring this back to the Leafs, but it's like you're looking, for example, at Austin Matthews, and you're like, wow, he gets to play with Mitch Marner every night. And if it's not Mitch Marner, he gets to play with William Nylander. Who the hell is Connor McDavid playing with? Because they don't play him and Draisaitl together that often. They do when they're in a pickle and they need things to happen. Those guys obviously do play together at times, but on a night in, night out basis, like Zach Hyman, that's going to be Connor McDavid's. That's his wingman.
Yeah,
Zach Hyman for the next 7 to 8 years. I don't know. Like, yeah.
I think
a lot of these GMs. It's kind of mind-boggling, honestly, some of the decisions that they make. And I don't know if there's a trade out there that Edmonton can make for a better player. But yeah, like I think it would be bad business if the Leafs ended up signing Zach Hyman to this exact same contract.
Yeah, I think from Edmonton's perspective, like they look at it and like just thinking, wow, this guy was successful with other really talented players, and we have really talented players, so let's insert him, and it will be Flowers.